Hi, I'm Bain from Christian Voice New Zealand. Now, I thought a few dollars I paid for a loaf of sourdough bread was quite reasonable, but how much would you be prepared to pay for your favourite loaf? If I was to suggest to you that in time you could pay a lot more, what would you think? Revelation 6:6 says, "A voice among the four living creatures said, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wage and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wage." I've always been a bit of a sceptic when it came to such pronouncements. After all, you can purchase a loaf of white toast bread from Pack and Save for not much more than $1. But history has proved there are times where people paid a week's wages for a loaf of bread. Now, recently on the news on TV, there was a report from Afghanistan where 6 young boys had quit school to go to work to earn money for food. Their parents were out of work since the Taliban took over. They were so hungry. They would spend all day going from door to door asking if they could shine shoes in exchange for money. Towards the end of the day, a man who admitted only having his shoe shined the day before by other boys gave them enough money to buy not a loaf of bread, but a single slice of bread, which they all shared. Funny, everyone talks about the world going to war over oil, but can I suggest bread rather than oil may be the catalyst for war in the future? Right now, coronavirus is a problem, but it's not alone in causing anxiety in the world. We're living at a time when global food supplies are getting tighter and tighter, and global food prices just keep getting higher and higher. Bizarre weather patterns and widespread natural disasters, they've played a havoc with food production everywhere. The pandemic has thrown worldwide supply chains into a state of complete and utter chaos. As a result, the world is currently battling the worst hunger crisis this century, and this year it's expected to get even worse. This is just the beginning. For a long time, experts have warned global trends indicate we're heading towards a horrifying global famine. Unfortunately, this fact is lost amongst the news reports of the global pandemic, climate change, crime, and trivia like celebrity weddings. But in Genesis 41, we can read the account of the son of Jacob, Joseph, who interpreted the dreams of the king of Egypt, where the country would have 7 years of good growth and then 7 years of famine. Joseph advised his king to, during those good times, build storehouses for surplus grain. If we haven't learned anything about that, let me spell it out to you. On a practical level, if you're going through a good time financially in your life right now, make sure you're putting something away for the lean times, because regardless of what is happening right now, hard times do come. You may not know, it's because it's hardly news, but the Chinese government is hoarding food on an unprecedented scale. What is it that they know that we don't? You see, less than 20% of the world's population has managed to stockpile more than half the globe's maize and other grains, leading to steep price increases across the planet, with more countries heading towards that famine. But if the famine is on the way, the Chinese are being extremely prudent. And the amount of food that they are now stockpiling is definitely eye-popping. According to data from the US Department of Agriculture, China is expected to have 69% of the world's available grain. Now, surely they're not planning to mass-produce sourdough bread. Other countries may also have food reserves, but as Joseph's father Jacob found out, once it's gone, you're on your own. You can see it whenever you go to the supermarket. Food prices are on the rise again. But we shouldn't worry, all is not lost, because the Western elite have a solution. Get this, a far-right libertarian financial blog has pointed out as the global food situation worsens, we're all likely going to have to be forced to eat crickets, worms and grasshoppers. Now, John the Baptist may think that this is an acceptable diet, but for some reason, the idea of popping through the drive-thru of Macca's and ordering a crunchy grasshopper burger to chop down on, even with the obligatory fries, or should that be flies, but either way, it's in no way making my taste buds salivate, not at all. If COVID has taught us anything over the past few years, it's how vulnerable our supply chains really are. The shortages that we are now experiencing are not going to go away anytime soon. Eventually, we'll see more severe famines all over the world. So while Beijing stockpiles food to avoid a collapse, what is the New Zealand government doing? Well, like its response to COVID, this current government will need to figure out how to print not dollars, but food from thin air. So if you're counting on the government to save you when things get really crazy, you're going to be severely disappointed. Now, as much as I like artisan breads like the sourdough, Would I be prepared to pay a week's wage for a pack and save home brand loaf of white toast bread? I hope not. Remember Jesus' words in Matthew 14. A sign of the last days, we would see nation rise against nation. He also said, though, that we would experience famine. So am I suggesting you load up your freezer with bread? Well, that's up to you. But while we're prudent about physical food, we should be gorging ourselves on the spiritual food, the bread of life found right here in God's Word. When times are tough and our belly aches with hunger, we can recall the abundant promises God gives his people. In the desert, he gave the Israelites manna to eat. On the shores of the Sea of Galilee, Jesus fed 5,000 to satisfaction with a few loaves and fishes. During the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said the hungry would be righteous. And in Revelation 7, he spoke about an end to hunger when his son Jesus rules the earth. Hunger will be no more, it says. A week's wages for a loaf of bread? It's not impossible.
Thank you for listening. For more information, jump online to christianvoicenewzealand.com.